All right, guys. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Results Loading Podcast, hosted by Prosperous AI. I'm, of course, your host, Michael Atkin, and today we have Brandon Stanchock, the CEO at SWF Industrial, with over 15 years of experience in the construction industry. Brandon has dedicated his career to building a culture centered on safety, innovation, and inclusivity. Starting his journey at Day and Zimmerman, he honed his skills in project controls before stepping into leadership at SWF, where he is empowering his team to thrive. He's also a passionate creator, hosting the Just Some BS podcast, sharing his insights with a wide audience. Looking to get some insights from another podcast professional today. I'm pretty excited about it. Looking forward to diving in. But with all that being said, Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to this one. And yeah, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me on. That was an incredible introduction. I feel like a superhero after that one, so thank you for that.
Yeah, man, that's the goal. You guys, these guests make it easy to hype them up. So anything I can do, I'm definitely
Yeah.
going to do it. But anyway, thanks again.
Mhm.
Gave everybody a little snippet there about what you've been doing. I'll obviously let you tell us more about it yourself, but getting us started here. Can you take us back to the beginning? Obviously, an illustrious career thus far, as we kind of just went through. Can you walk us through your career journey a bit and fill us in on some of the pivotal moments that led you to becoming a VP and then later CEO at SWF?
Went to school for optometry as a biology major, which has nothing to do with anything I do now, which I'm sure many school people go through that. Graduated, wasn't sure what I was going to do, spent 6 months in my parents' basement playing video games. It was the greatest time of my life. Then got a job and did power plant construction. I think I was at my job for 2 weeks before they sent me to New York, right outside of New York City for my first project. And then didn't look back. Traveled for pretty much 8 straight years all over the country. I never get the stat right, but it's like 30, somewhere in the mid 30s of states in that amount of time. And then the last 2 years, I was a manager for probably, I don't know, 20 people maybe. And then got the opportunity to come over to SWF because my father-in-law, who started the company in '84, had some health issues. Jumped over there in 2018 to help out the family, and then worked with him until he couldn't work anymore. Got him to retire, and then obviously took over as CEO once he passed away in 2020, and then here we are in 2024. So that's kind of the gist of it.
So I know that there's definitely commonality in people going to school and then doing absolutely nothing of the sorts with their career. Obviously, we have another example of how it's worked out extremely well for you, obviously running a construction company now and not just running it. I mean, literally you're the CEO. Can you take us back a little bit and dive into this a little bit deeper? The pivot into construction, obviously, you have family members in the industry, but what was the moment when you were like, you know what, this may be the move for me. This may be one of the answers I was looking for. And then also, how are you able to climb the ranks so quickly and ending up in a leadership position, running the show? Obviously, there's something clicking. Tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of started and what those aha moments looked like.
Yeah. So I think, as many people do, my dad was in power plant construction for a long time. So I think when you don't know what you're going to do, you fall into what's comfortable. And that's exactly what I did. I had an in, my dad had an in with a person. It's, the cliche of it's not really how much you know, it's who you know. So kicked that off, got in with Day and Zimmerman, great company, into the big power plant construction industry. And then from that point, I would say the biggest motivator of success for me was just never saying no. So I just went to as many projects as I possibly could. And I traveled so much because I wanted to experience as many things as I could. So in that time frame, I mean, some of them were horrible. When I say horrible, like they were awful to go through because they were really bad ones. You never remember the good ones. You remember the horrible ones because they teach you the most. So the big thing for me, and what I tell especially students and things like that, is like, just go after, just be as helpful to the company as you possibly can by going and solving problems for your direct bosses, being responsible, like just do all the really shitty stuff because it'll teach you, and you become so much more equipped when you get older that like nothing's scary anymore. So that was a big help. And then from the SWF side, the VP role was really just, it was an opportunity because of family. It was a situation that we had to figure out. So it wasn't anything that I was being groomed for. It was just something that happened. And I was lucky enough to be available to help out. So there was no, it was, it was, it was given because of the situation we were in. So I didn't earn it or anything like that. So I went through quite a bit of imposter syndrome at the beginning of that because of it. But figuring out my way and what I was good at. And then once I did that, you get comfortable in your own skin. And here we are.
Totally. And it's funny you brought up, there was something you mentioned earlier, which I think is fantastic. I've said this on the show before, and I'll tell you why. My guest the other day made the exact same comment when we were talking about something similar. How did you get to this point? How did you climb the ranks and really progress through your career? Don't say no. Never say no. And what that does is a few things. Number one, it puts you in positions when you're going to fail. And as you just mentioned, you don't remember the things that go perfectly to plan and that go really well. You remember the things that were absolutely shit shows.
Yes.
And yeah, those sting and you feel those and those, are more difficult to remember. But man, you learn a lot from them. So when you get thrown into a situation when you're a VP and then all of a sudden you're, due to unforeseen circumstances, you're thrown into like a leadership role and you weren't necessarily groomed for it and you're dealing with the imposter syndrome, at least you've developed some of that tough skin that you can at least say, you know what? I know how to at least overcome challenges, overcome adversity. I've dealt with some of this stuff before. Let's see what we can make happen. And I think that's a really strong and important message for those who are trying to figure out how to take not just their career to the next level, but it's a good life lesson, I guess. And I'm sure you'd agree
Mentality.
because
Yeah.
it's kind of a mentality that you have to have these days in order to scrap through and develop and grow, right?
Yeah, and I think the construction industry is pretty tough in general. Like we can be pretty brutal to each other, and it's kind of accepted in the industry. And I wish it wasn't, because it can be ruthless at times. But those times have really cultured like there's not much that's scary when you sit in a room and get screamed at by a 40-year-old person, right? That's like across the table. You can pretty much go through anything after that. So
Yeah, definitely not pleasant, but I hate to say that, but it's like it's good for you, you know? It's good for you.
yeah, I mean, it's totally unnecessary, right? In the sense of like you can resolve any conflict without screaming at another human being. Like, and that's our mantra that we really like. I've only yelled 4 times at SWF, and all 4 times I never needed to, and I'm very annoyed at myself for doing it. So you can, I mean, it's just because I was ignorant in that situation. For myself, I was ignorant to how to solve the situation the right way, and now that's why you learn and you read books and you have peers and mentors and all that stuff. But those situations never have to happen. But when they do, they certainly give you some perspective on what not to do and also what you can handle.
Exactly. What you can handle. And it probably helps alleviate some of that imposter syndrome because you've been in the CEO position for a while now, like not a super long time, but a while. And it's like, look at you now, versus when you first got thrown into the big chair, huge mental difference, obviously, given what you can handle, what you've been through, and what you can accomplish in this role.
Yeah, the other piece of it too is I walked into literally the perfect team. Like I had no one
Helpful.
that, yeah, that was like I could have had a ton of people that said like, why not me? Right?
Yeah.
In their chair. And I didn't have any of that. It was just like, hey, this is what I'm horrible at, which was pretty much everything we do at the at the business. Like I can't build anything. I'm terrible with my hands. It's all a joke. But I have skill sets in project management and leadership and things like that that I tried to bring forward. And I just stayed in my lane as much as I could, until I could pick up pieces. And everyone was extremely helpful in letting me laugh at me too, right? To fall over those things. And we're such a strong team. I mean, it's made such a huge difference. If I didn't have them, it would have been 10 times worse for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got to let your team do their job. I mean, you hire people are hired into those roles to because they know how to do it better than anyone else.
Agreed.
And this is more or less a podcast about leadership to some degree, and I think that's a commonality or a common theme. I'm as successful as I am because of the people surrounding me. Like I am, obviously, people are humble. A lot of the leaders, just like you, are humble when they talk about how they've gotten to this point in their career, but never without giving credit to those around them, especially in the workplace, who have helped them get to that specific
Mhm.
point, and give a lot of credit to the team and allowing the team to do their thing, and kind of emphasis on the opposite of micromanagement, right? And
Mhm.
letting them do what they're good at and then achieving and succeeding together, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that whole micromanaging thing, like, I don't know. I think the biggest flaw to leadership is the insecurity piece. And if you can't get through that yourself, you're going to constantly have those problems, which is sad because a lot of it's like, it's not what people want to feel.
Yeah.
It's something you have to psychologically work through yourself to get to that other side to be extremely helpful and like let people just like go do your job. Like it's cool.
Yeah.
If you fail, like no big deal. We'll move on.
By far the best leaders and like the best managers I've had are the ones who are like, I'm literally gonna not talk to you unless you need something. Like it's not me ignoring you. It's just like I'm gonna let you do. I hired you, so like go and take care of it. If you need me, yeah, I'm here. But that's it. I'm not gonna be knocking on
Right.
the door every day, being like, "How's it going?" And our team kicked ass because everyone loved that manager. He's a director now because the consensus was clear. He was awesome, and people kind of listened to what he said because everyone loved him and his leadership skills. Makes a big
Yeah, and I had the benefit of having really good bosses too. I didn't even remember, like I had project managers I didn't get along with on projects, but I didn't have to work for them. Like I was a full-time hire at my job, and they were kind of, they're brought in for specific projects, but like my direct bosses were always like so excellent, and they gave me long leashes. Like, and I'd be on projects for 9 months. I talked to them maybe like 4 times, and it was only like, I'm about to leave this place, right? Like, because I was so pissed about something, and they just talked me off the ledge, and we talked through it. But like, yeah, I think I learned very quickly like what not to do and what to do just by experiencing good and bad.
totally. Why? So going back to something you mentioned earlier, real quick, how come everyone's so angry in construction these days? Or is that just like what's the deal with the anger and the yelling? Because a lot of construction people on the show seems to be, another commonality. What's the deal with that, do you think? What's
Well,
going
I
on?
do think I do think it's a cliche. I don't think it is bad. Like it's not like 1982, even though I was not even born then.
Sure.
But um it's stress, right? I think it's a lot. Like the things that are being built. If you talk about like putting up a new, like I don't know, like a new manufacturing facility for food, right? You're talking about something that they want a deadline and usually unrealistic expectations with an unrealistic budget, and everything's just unrealistic. So there's constant pressure for things that can't be done until you get to the realization of like, oh, it can be. And projects can be done on time and under budget, but like you have to have a really solid plan, which means you got to be really transparent and really open at the very beginning, and like let's be real with each other. And I just think building things like that is, and bringing groups of people who have never worked together, and you're talking multiple subcontractors, multiple things all working together. I think that collaboration takes such a level that is pretty unusual, but can happen. That I think that's what causes the stress of like, and it's a little bit accepted, right? That okay, we're construction guys, we should be able to take a little bit of a beating. That's the thing we have to get through as well. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I honestly don't. I've had great experiences and I've had shitty experiences. So I think it's just like everything else. I think there's good and bad in all industries.
Yeah. I mean, definitely stressful, like definitely a lot of moving parts, high stakes projects, especially, when we're talking about multi-million dollar builds, and, you're dealing with all these different GCs, vendors. Is supply chain going to let us down?
Mm,
What is going to be, what are going to be additional costs that we didn't initially plan for, et cetera.
yep.
Yeah, no, and then it's like, who's going to tell the client there's bad news, because you would know this better than me. How often, Brandon, does a project pretty much go 100% perfect to plan? And when I say 100%, I don't actually mean 100%, but
Sure. Because that doesn't
pretty,
happen.
yeah, because exactly that doesn't happen. But how often does it come in like actually under budget and relatively on time? How often is that? are we seeing that these days?
I don't know. I don't think I can actually answer that. Just because I don't live in the world of like all. I mean, construction projects are all very different. Like we're in
Yeah, I
industrial
know it's an unfair
construction.
question, but
Yeah, but I mean, it's all possible, right? But it's having a good plan. If you have a solid plan with a solid scope that everybody can actually put a good budget to and good line items and a real schedule, and we can be real about everyone's expectation inside of that is completely possible. But it's a lot of transparency, it's daily updates, it's being honest with each other when something goes wrong, and it's being open and honest so that you can pivot when things do go wrong. So it can happen, but it takes collaboration at the highest level. And I've been a part of those teams, and it is epic when it comes together. Like there's no better
oh,
feeling. It's
oh,
really good.
I'm sure. And like for something that you're more, would you say it's like based on what partners and vendors you work with put you in a more advantageous point to hit those marks and absolutely dominate a project, or is it just kind of sometimes there are inevitable elements of it when it's like, you know what, I can't control the weather, I can't control supply chain, I can't control what this vendor is doing, or if aren't paying attention, what have you, you name it. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
seems like it's almost a luck of the draw thing too. No matter how much you collaborate, in some instances, there's still intangibles.
yeah, there's always they call them unknown unknowns. So you'll have like a
Mhm.
risk register that will cover unknowns that you think could happen, weather being one of those, and you put money to it. And then so you have a risk register with all these dollars that say, okay, if this shit happens, we have money aside to pivot and pay for this. And then you have this unknown list, which is just could be a blank check, or some people don't put money to it. That happens all the time too. And it's just shit that happens you never expected. And it could be, like you said, any of those things that you never even thought of. But the human piece of it, the collaboration piece is just, it's all those people skills. Like if you're really good at bringing people together and from all walks of life and communicating clearly and having respect for each other, like that makes a project go way better than probably all of your vendors and everything. So it's human nature. It's no different than a living, breathing organization, right? You're just creating an organization with all these different pods, but you all have the same interests of making money and getting your scope of work done on time.
Yeah, and obviously striving towards the same goal, being completing the project correctly on time, within
Yes,
relatively within budget, etc.
that's correct.
Awesome. So Brandon, before we dive into this a little bit deeper, can you just
Yeah.
quickly tell us a little bit about SWF, what specifics you're working on, if you're possible, and really what the like the main company goal is, and what you guys are doing on the day to day?
Yeah. So our company values are character, commitment, and creativity. So we call them the three C's. That was rebranded a couple of years ago, but Al is always SWF is always known for high quality. So we build anything metal. If you can't buy in a catalog, we pretty much build it. That doesn't, but we don't build buildings. So anything inside of a building. So that could be staircases, mezzanines, platforms. That could be equipment. That could be tanks, bases, you name it. If it's made of metal, and that's aluminum, carbon, or stainless, we can do all three. And then we also have an installation crew of about 30 people who can go out and install the stuff we build or install customer stuff. But we are known for high quality. I would say, this is being a little bit SWF glasses on, but we have some of the best stainless welders, fabricators probably on the East Coast. I'm just going to say that even though I've never not met them all, but I know we're very good at it and we get work, kind of all over the place. And when you're in our sweet spot's kind of food, pharma, beverage, so that also is a sweet spot to be very good at stainless because you can't have any impurities, right? You can't have bacteria growing, so we know how to polish things to mirror finishes. We make all kinds of jacketed piping for chocolate lines and things like that. So yeah, a little bit of everything. We are very good at running projects. We have a very mature project management philosophy, and I feel our team is really bought in. So if you give us a project, we will not be the cheapest most of the time, but we'll be highly efficient. We're very communicative. If we're not going to make something, we tell you early. So I think that transparency and maturity in our approach to our projects is really what's going to save you long-term money, you know.
Totally. Yeah, no, and it's interesting that you guys have, it seems like a lot of construction companies and GCs and whatnot have their niche, and you mentioned food and the connection to stainless steel. I mean, I was literally reading an article today about how bad pretty much anything except stainless steel is to handle food these days, even like
Mhm.
tin foil and whatnot.
Mhm.
And stainless steel, it's like it's the, for restaurants, now you see them in residential kitchens, you know this obviously better than me. Best way to manage your food, especially with all these studies coming out about how terrible everything else is that we've been using to handle our food for the past 200 years or whatever.
Forever, right?
Since basically forever, yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
processing anything with processing food is pretty much all stainless now, even to the point where they're actually putting in like stainless platforms and things like that at some places, just to keep bacteria, anything like that down. So yeah.
totally. So is your approach to the market, are you going after, food specifically, or is it more like of an inbound thing and that's the industry kind of knows, hey, SWF does a really good job within this industry and they come to you, or how does that kind of look these days?
Yeah, we have three verticals. One being fabrication, which covers our two facilities, which is 5 bays. One being a carbon bay, one being a stainless bay, the other one being production, which would be high volume stuff. So that would be a lot of like air conditioning covers for buses. Like we'll make hundreds of those. And then the two other bays, they're both kind of specific customers. One makes like cryogenic freezing equipment for food, and then the other one does a lot of emissions work for like large diesel generators and stuff like that. So it's kind of all over the place, and in between there, we can build anything from a giant asphalt conveyor silo to stainless steel cylinders and cyclones to, I mean, yeah, like I said, anything metal that you would not buy out of. And the reason I say buy out of a catalog is because we don't do a lot. We do a lot of one-off custom stuff. So we'll do similar projects, but maybe only do like 15 or 20 of them. Where like we don't do a lot, we don't do product lines of things. We don't make Harley Davidson tanks, right, for their motorcycles. Like we do very specific, very custom work.
Very cool. Which obviously comes with a huge design team as well. I would imagine an architecture-esque kind of team too.
Yeah, we get a lot of the engineering drawings in from our customers, but we have a detailing department who are all fabricators who take those and turn those into fabrication drawings so we actually can read them to build it. So they put it into pieces that make sense for our fabrication team so they can put them all together and make exactly what the customer wants.
Awesome, man. No, that sounds fantastic. Um, so backing up a little bit and going back to kind of your team and the values that
Mm,
you believe to be really important, and I agree with you. You've mentioned in the past driving results through accountability as well as respect.
mm.
Are you able to share, if possible, any relative examples of how you've instilled these values in your team and how you want that to be part of the core values that you were mentioning earlier?
Yeah, so I think they already existed. I think Al did a really good job with
I was your father-in-law, correct? Sorry, I just
yeah,
want to.
correct.
Got
Yep.
it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
he started the company. So SWF stands for Stewart Welding and Fabricating. So his last name was
Okay.
Stewart. Um, and so I think the running projects well and giving the customer what they wanted is always what we've been really good at. So the accountability piece from a PM standpoint has always been there. I'd say the big pivot we had when it started was really the data side of it. I brought a lot of data and analytics to prove what we were doing is going well, right? And then just to keep that pressure needle, right? To make sure that we're staying in line, to keep the company financially really healthy, and then also make sure our projects are in line and like being able to predict our projects and how well they were going to go before they were complete. Because it used to be like just actuals versus budget, but now we use earned value management so that we actually put percent completes involved in the project. So a lot of it was just a little bit of change in philosophy, and then we just have a lot of charts. I love data. I love insights on that. And I love to give that to everyone so everybody knows, okay, we're doing good this year, or we're not, we're behind on this, we're ahead on this, quotes are good. And it also gives transparency for people to give people grace of like, oh, this is why this person's so stressed out. Maybe this is why they were a little short with me because there's like 100 quotes in their basket right now, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's huge because data right now is literally the new oil, the new gold, if you will. There's
Mm.
so many insights in the data, in the business intelligence that historically, traditionally, as you know, had not been accessed. Especially with, I'm sure, Al, who a traditionalist from a different generation. It's more of a gut feeling. Data was not on the table. We're not analyzing anything. We're not doing margin analysis. We're not seeing where we can cut costs based on what the data is telling us, right?
Right.
And so, now with all these tools and technologies that are available to us, obviously, you know, artificial intelligence as well, you're able to get those insights in a matter of seconds and, help with some strategic decision making, help cut costs in whatever area you may think is relevant or that you're looking at. And it can be a total game changer, obviously.
Well, I mean, it's your world, right? So this is probably like we're talking to like what your data analytics AI, that's what your company is. So, and I know it's more supply chain focused, but I mean, it's the way to save money. Like you're not going to be able to comprehend, especially when you get to a certain size company. Like one person can't do that. Even a group of people can't do that. There's just too much data. You're going to miss pockets. So you should be letting other things do that.
Well, exactly. And something that we found here at Prosperous is that some companies are trying, but they have
Mm.
teams and it's taking them weeks and weeks and weeks to go in and, data scientists, these are data scientists, I mean, intelligent people, weeks
Yep.
to go through, sift through the data, pick out insights that and make something of it. And then, 6, 7 weeks later, they come back with a report, but it's been almost 2 months and the data's old. It's like time to look at Q2, man. Like it doesn't matter anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And so it takes them weeks to go in and get something valuable out of what the numbers are telling them. But now, luckily, there are tools and innovative resources that you can use today that will ingest all of your data. And in a matter of seconds, you ask it exactly what you want to know, and it'll tell you, whether it be on the procurement side, the supply chain side, the
Yep.
operations side, even in terms of communicating with your vendors, autonomous negotiations, you name it. I mean, it's possible, and as you said, it's about saving money. It's what we're trying to do: save money and
Yep.
get out with as close to budget as possible. Obviously,
Yeah, we just had a example. We have an in-house project manager, and she used to do all of our contract reviews, and now she's too busy running huge projects that she can't do contract reviews anymore. And I didn't really want to pay a lawyer, whatever dollars per hour to go do that.
yep.
So I talked to my AI builder guy who I had on the podcast, who I learned who can kind of point me in a direction, and we went to Claude. I told him, he got with Sarah, our PM, and she said, "This is all the things I look for." He wrote me a program for, I don't know, a couple grand. And now I have an AI thing that I plug in the contracts and it reads the whole thing, tells me what to mark up, and then I send it back to the customer. Like the one-time costs, and I can run contracts through it forever.
And poor Sarah's like, "Thank you. You've given me so many hours of my day back that I didn't even know I could have."
Yes, that's exactly it, because she's running multi-million dollar projects, right? And contract reviews is a waste of her time anymore.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, contracts are easy. AI, I mean, that was like some V1,
Bread and
V2
butter.
stuff for yeah, AI, no problem, Now we're looking at the margin analysis, the analytics. I mean,
Yes.
that's chump change. So yeah, good for Sarah, man. Happy that she started the year off right with some AI help there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. So, with that being said, what do you see some of the biggest opportunities and challenges facing the construction industry today? Obviously, I have a feeling you're going to say the adoption rate of what you kind of just described and what you're doing currently needs to
Mm.
increase because most construction companies traditionally, as you know, technologically behind 5-ish years. What about other opportunities for improvement or challenges that you see facing the industry these days that need to be addressed?
Yeah, so the one thing AI can't solve is going to be workforce, right? So actual
Totally.
craft people. So my crazy solution for that is extreme collaboration, even with your direct competitors. So we are currently going through an exercise of like collecting local contractors in our area, and I'm actually trying to start a manufacturing peer group in this area because we don't have one. So I love peer groups. I love my Vistage peer group. They've helped me through imposter syndrome and just perspective and you name it,
Nice.
everything.
You do Vistage as well in the leadership. Okay, I've had a bunch of guests are in that as well.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
Everyone
I
loves
well,
it.
Yeah, it's amazing as long as your chair is great and your group like is diverse. I think we have a super diverse group,
Mhm.
lots of different industries and lots of different backgrounds, ages, everything, and it's wonderful because it's like, well, I don't see things that way, and they're like, oh, okay, and then the whole group just starts like poking holes, and I love it. Anyway, I don't have an industry one in this area, so we're trying to start that up. Actually, we have a first meeting in February, and
Nice.
part of that collaboration is like we're never going to have enough people, but if we all join together, we may have enough people. Like, I don't want you to ever have pockets because all I want is every person who wants to work with their hands and build amazing things. I want you to have as many hours as you possibly need to make your family happy. So, if
Right.
that's the case, if we can all say, hey, I got a whole month here where I'm only working 40 hours and my people love 52 because that's what we love. Our entire company loves 52. That's our sweet spot. So if we can stay 52 for an entire year because we either get overflow from a competitor or we send you overflow to keep you at whatever your sweet number is, like that means our entire little area of York, Lancaster County can stay really busy. And not even stopping there, like we had meetings with people from North Carolina who are fabricators and do really good work. Like this thing, why not just make it the entire United States? Because there will not be enough people. So that's my crazy idea right now.
I just don't see an issue with collaboration, whether it's with competitors or not. Because
It's your
ultimately, the way I see it is it eventually turns into partnerships, right? I mean, I see why some people would maybe not be as excited as you and I about an idea like that. But if you need the numbers and it's only going to be beneficial for both sides and it's not really a risky play for anybody business wise or anything else, I don't really see the issue with it. I'm on board with it for
well,
sure.
we didn't get screwed in the past,
Okay,
right?
well, that's part of the yeah, that's part of the process for sure.
Right.
It's
We
fair.
haven't gotten burnt by that person I'm now calling. Like some people in my company, my COO has been with us for going on 38 years. He has been burnt in the past. He has had employees taken directly to that competitor because that competitor called them, right? And even though I'm not into controlling people's careers or anything, that's still you still have to replace that person and come up with solutions. You just make people's lives. And like if people want to leave, like it's totally cool. We live in the space now where like if you're not happy, like I want you to be
You
happy. Go
should go.
find that
Yeah.
happiness. Exactly. So, but it's just a different headspace because back then it was like not the abundance mentality where we're getting into the abundance mentality. There will be enough for all, and there will really be enough for all if we collaborate. Because when I'm slow, I can call you and say, "Hey, you got anything for me?" And when you're slow, you call me and I say, like right now, we are so freaking busy. I need all the friends in the world. And that
Totally.
won't always be the case, right? But like right now it is. So let's figure it out.
Yeah. Plus, it's just business. Like sometimes maybe those relationships be really great for you, and other times you get burned, and that's just the way of the world, and that's just business. And it's a
Right.
good pill to swallow one way or the other. Question for you. Are you experiencing any difficulty finding good young talent these days, recruiting out of college? A few of the construction professionals I've spoken with the last few months have been saying there's a big gap, a big age gap in the industry these days. Is that something that's impacting you guys at all or affecting you? Specifically pertaining to like the younger, generation kids coming out of school in their 20s, mid 20s, looking to get into the industry, having really big desires, wanting really big paychecks, but not really going through the motion that maybe some of your more tenured employees had gone through, for example, and seeing kind of a gap there.
I would say 4 years ago, we would hire probably, if we hired 10 kids straight out of trade school, we'd probably keep 50%. Now I'm keeping probably 100% most of the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So huge change probably in the last 4 years of the people coming out of trade schools want to do this for life. It's not a last resort. One, the paychecks are good. The overtime's amazing. The pay is good. They love working with their hands and they have no debt.
Done. What is there not
Done.
to love?
And if you supply them with things not just around a paycheck, right? So we just started we are paying for therapy for our entire company unlimited sessions, and up to 7 family members for every employee in our company. Just started that this year. It's all virtual based. They can go on the app and book their own therapy sessions for them or their 7 family members. It doesn't have to be direct family. That's what's crazy. I love it. But like, we have a book club. Like, so you have to fill that potential bucket in other ways just beyond paychecks and like on the job training, which is what I think people are mostly scared about. The book club, if you are an executive leader and you are listening to this, a company book club, but you have to be a part of it. Like, I read every Monday and Friday with my team, and we sit on a meeting for half an hour and talk about the chapter, and it's only like 12 pages. It will be the single greatest collaboration, personal growth, and like leadership training, and it'll be the cheapest that you can ever do in your company. I guarantee it.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Honestly, book clubs are sick. Book clubs are awesome. I was
They're
in a
so
book club.
underrated.
They're so underrated. I don't know why everyone isn't in a book club. I joined my first book club. We threw it together with a bunch of friends, and it was
Yeah.
electric. We can't get enough of it now. It's obviously paused. A bunch of people moved away, and so it kind of lost steam. But for like 18 months, oh my God, that stuff, we were having a freaking blast, and it was a
Yeah.
Wednesday, like
Yeah.
out of nowhere, out of
Yeah.
nowhere. It was absolutely electric activity. The reason I was smiling so much is because I couldn't agree with you more, man. I've never heard of it in the workplace, but I imagine it's got the same effect whether you're at work or doing it with friends or family or what have you. That is an awesome tool because book clubs
So
are awesome for sure.
yeah, for $300, we had 30 something people sign up for the book club. And like you want to talk about, like, if you want to lower your wasted time on arguments, like if your maturity level in your arguments at your company is, if you feels low, like you think of people are bickering over really dumb stuff, get a book club started. The hardest thing is convincing people,
Yeah,
but I did it with
selling it.
construction men. So it's possible,
It's
right?
possible. If you can tackle that group, then anyone can do anything. Tech should be easy.
Yeah, and this entire group, I told them they have to get one other person, right? So like we have roughly 170 people, and like so we're just a small morsel, but like they're all saying the same thing. Like, this is changing the way they're viewing their family. But because remember, you can't just solve the workplace problem; you have to solve the at-home problem too, because
Yeah,
that baggage slows you down at work. Like, baggage is
totally.
baggage. You still have to carry it everywhere. People who say they can turn it off, I don't understand those people. I am a terrible employee when I got shit going on at home. So if you think that way, like, okay, how do you make their overall life better? Like, you have to look into books like that. Like, we're reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Nice. Awesome.
Everybody told me it's going to be too hard. It's too muddy, blah, blah, blah. I said, you are totally underestimating this group of people. Dude, electric. Perfect word for it. It's electric.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People is an awesome, awesome book, by the way.
Life
I
changing.
didn't think about it as like a book club group, but it definitely works. It
Yes.
definitely works. There's so many things you can discuss if you just read yeah, like you said, the chapters are
12 pages.
12 pages, and then you
Yeah.
come in on Friday and it's like, guys, what are we thinking about this? I bet you go in overtime like most days. It's like, all right, the 30 minutes has been up for
Yeah.
15 minutes. You got to wrap it up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a speaking group and non-speaking group because I wanted everybody to feel comfortable. And if you're in
Sure.
the speaking group, I use a random name generator online. It's free and just spins the wheel, right? And I pick the people for the next. I pick 6 people. It gives you 5 minutes per person. And if they go over a little bit, it's fine because some
Yep.
people go under or whatever. But then you pick those people, 6 people, and you can just keep rotating through them. But what's crazy is, like, I can read the chapter, and the 6 people who talk, they pick out so many different things that I didn't even think about.
You
So
don't
you're
even
getting
see. Yeah.
6 different perspectives every single time.
You come out smarter like twice a week,
Yes, it's exact 100%. It's
literally.
guaranteed. And the sell is this. And you have to sell. If you're the executive, you're the one that has to go around and sell this. And all you say is, I guarantee that one part of your life will get better with this book club. Just one. It'll be more than one, but all you have to do is guarantee one. That was my
No
selling
doubt.
point.
No, and literally, and on a more serious note, when you're having a little bit more fun at work and you're promoting that like collaborative, non-stressful, like 30 minutes twice a week with the people you work with, basically you're putting yourself in a position to enjoy the time with people you work with. Going to work
Totally.
isn't that bad. It's pretty
Totally.
fun actually. And I've been in positions like that when it's like I love my team and whether we're working or not working, I'm pretty much enjoying myself most of the time.
Correct.
And it's like, damn, this is not that bad. And I'm having a pretty nice time at home and a pretty nice time at work. And life's going pretty well. And it's an
Yes.
awesome way to promote that kind of attitude because it makes a huge, huge difference. It really does,
Happy
as you know.
people, happy people are efficient people. Period.
Yeah. And they're kicking ass at work because they're not, stressed out about every single thing all day
Yes.
long. Makes
Yeah.
I can't emphasize that enough because I've been there and it just, it's a really, really powerful tool. That's huge. I will have to keep that one in mind for when I have a bigger team and maybe I'll instill that myself.
And with your friends group, you don't have to sit in the same room. Get on a team Zoom call and go around the room, man. You guys can be anywhere and still have your book club.
Yeah. No, I know. Like I said, we got up to there's like 14 of us and
That's amazing.
yeah, it was during the pandemic too. So it was like
Of course.
you could, go to the
You needed
park.
it.
Yeah, we needed it. And we are doing
Yeah.
fiction, so we read some really good fiction stuff, And man, people were bringing the, wine on a Wednesday. It was awesome. It was
That's
awesome. But then
awesome.
everyone moved away so anyway, that's awesome stuff. How many books have you guys gotten through so far? Is this the
So I
first
did
round?
no, I did three small groups just to test the waters. So we did
Sure.
Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then I did that again with a second group. And we did 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in the small group. And then that went really well. And I said, okay, I think I'm going to open this up to the entire company. What are your thoughts? And the group said, let's go for it. And then that small group also came back in to like give me, like I loaded the crowd a little bit, like to give me people that were like going to help me through if I would struggle. It wasn't a struggle at all. Second week, I had people coming up to me like, my wife's thanking you for this book club. I'm a totally different person. It was amazing.
Man, you're picking some good ones too. Carnegie, How to Make Friends and
Oh,
Influence People is another awesome one.
he changed my life on how I approach people. Like I looked you up before this meeting because I wanted to learn about you because it's important because people want to feel important, right? So knowing about your company, knowing what you're into, knowing what you guys are doing with data and analytics and supply chain, it's fascinating and I think it's really cool. And you're also a co-founder, which comes with its own pressure. So I wanted to know all that before because that's respectful to people. So do a little bit of that.
Totally. No, and no, and you're exactly right. I had a mentor told me the same thing. Like a lot of stuff that you've said kind of coincides with advice I've gotten over the years from people who are much smarter than I am. But yeah, treat people the way you want to be treated, and then for God's sake, 5 minutes before a meeting, just do a little research. Just go and see what's going on. It goes a long way as opposed to
Yes.
having the weather conversation with every single stranger you meet.
We
Where
did
are you
have the weather
located? How?
conversation though.
Yeah, but we still had it. I know, but we had an Arctic blast, so it was like relevant. If it was 40 degrees outside, it'd be super lame.
You'd be like, you're so late.
Yeah, it's like, oh, just 40 degrees. It's like partially cloudy. I think we got some gusts coming in later this evening, but I don't know. But yeah, we still have the weather, but we got some relevant weather to discuss here, so I think it's
Yeah,
fair
no
enough.
doubt.
It's
We both
national
had
news.
shitty cold weather the last couple of days, so
Yeah, I haven't been able to leave my damn house in 3 days. But yeah, exactly. God, that sucks. We still have the weather conversation, but that's okay. That's all right. But yeah, no, it's a big deal. It makes a big difference. Like who's Hermosi says it too. Alex Hermosi says it like
Mm.
before a meeting, just 5 minutes, do exactly what Brandon just did, what you just said. Check out what they're doing, what are they into. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to talk about it. Maybe there won't. But if there is, you're in like way further than like I said, the people who go to the weather right away,
Mhm.
which is fine. It happens. We talked about the weather, but
Sure.
so much more as well.
Yeah.
So also curious, want to talk about the podcast a little bit.
Mm.
I think it's only fair we hear a little bit about what you have going on. Over 1 million views on YouTube channels, really
Mm.
awesome. How are you balancing being, kind of a content creator with leading SWF? And how is it tying into your professional life?
Oh, good question. I don't always get the balance right, for sure.
Sure.
Probably a little bit more selfish with my time than I should be, for sure. And what I mean by that is probably like my hobbies. I spend a little too much time. Like my Sundays are right there in front of that TV gaming all day because that's like my my decompression
The
before we get back into the week.
disconnect. Yeah.
Yeah. But from a content standpoint, it's just a lot of scheduling. Like if you have time, like set a day, batch record if like you're into making videos, or like be I'm a highly organized person, so like folder structure. Like so one of my channels is Detailed Traveler. I do reviews of the places we visit. So when we go on vacation, I'm running around getting video of like everything. But it
Nice.
also allows me to like I can rest for probably like 2 days and then I'm like, okay, what am I doing for the next 5? And then it's like, okay, video. Like I have all this shit. I love to-do lists. So that like is my comfort zone. And so like the folder structure, and then like when you're on an airplane, like maybe not just sleeping, maybe I'm putting the videos into categories, I'm writing the script, or like just there's a lot of time that we waste like without when it's pockets of time. Like if I'm sitting in a room and I'm waiting for an appointment, I'm like on ChatGPT, like maybe messing with something that I'm interested in, right?
Yeah.
But like and taking those pockets of time to try to really maximize your time. And I also try to keep a 50-50 balance between creating and consuming, which is hard because I want to game for 8 hours on a Sunday. Well, that means on Saturday I have to either do some stuff around the house or I have to edit a video that I have sitting there for 4 hours, right? So I have to I try to pay myself back on creation side to consume the things I want, whether that's Netflix or gaming or whatever, vegging out with my wife to watch a movie. It doesn't matter.
Totally. And what inspired you to start Just Some BS podcast? What topics or
Mm.
conversations? I mean, where did the idea come from, and what is the premise there, and what's the ultimate goal if there is one?
Yeah. So I was on LinkedIn and I want to make sure I get this right, which I should know his name. I absolutely love him. Okay, just want to make sure I got it right. Jonathan Core. So he's a like a marketer for major construction. He's amazing, and he wrote a post and said, if you're a construction executive and you want more employees and more customers, I said I want both of those, and he said you should start a podcast. And I said that's interesting. Why? And then he wrote why. He's like, branding. It's hard to hide who you are in a longer form content. Blah 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 blah. So I was like, okay, well, I have everything that I need to do this because I'm into gaming. I make YouTube videos. Blah blah blah. So it was a very easy switch for me. I just had to buy Riverside and then find guests, which is the hardest part. So then that kicked off, and I didn't know how long it was going to last. I didn't niche down because I didn't want to run out of guests. It was really nothing more than I never wanted to run out of guests until I wanted to run out of guests, right? I wanted to make that decision myself. So I didn't stay in leadership or anything. I just talk about people's passions because it's really easy to talk about people when they're passionate about things. So that kicked that off. And this year, like I'm booked out till April right now, I think, with guests. And for some reason, I made the commitment to myself when people message me on LinkedIn to like not sell me something, but you know how it is. Like, hey, what's your biggest hurdle? And I have this leadership stuff, or I'm into this and I'm really good at this. Maybe I can help your company. I literally tell them, well, why don't you come share it to the people that listen to my podcast because it may be
Yeah.
helpful for them, not just me. And it's actually been pretty successful. People are like, oh, okay. So I've gotten a lot of guests that way just because I'm like, well, if you're going to sell me something, then you gotta do it on the pod. So that's been helpful. And then also just getting some exposure to having really good guests on that have like their own network. And then,
Totally.
uh, but it's helped with I've had employees on to talk about their passions, which has been amazing. And then so employees listen to their other employees talk about their passions. So there's a common ground there. And they just like hearing the conversation and then having, subcontractors or vendors on as well. It's been helping relationships there. Having Charlie on talking about AI got me to use him to create Claude for my contracts because he's an SME. He's like, why don't you just use AI to solve the problem? And it's like, you're a genius.
Thank
So
you, Sarah. Thanks
yeah,
you.
yeah. So anything with just SMEs or relationships or just exposure, no, like people just when they go to my profile, they click on the first thing people do is they go, oh, that's interesting. Click on your profile. Oh, where do they work? Click on the website. That's the process on LinkedIn. So
Totally.
like your personal brand automatically goes back to where you work every time because that is the process people think through. At least that's what I do. I go, that's a great post. Who is this person? Oh, what do they do? Oh, this is what they do. Oh, what does this company do? That I
It-
guarantee that's how it's going.
yeah, and the great thing about the podcast is you don't need to invite LeBron or Donald Trump
Or Elon.
or Elon on the show to on as a guest to have an interesting conversation.
Mm,
You could invite literally anybody who has some element of a passion about them, like you were just saying, and it could be interesting and worth hearing, and worth going and hearing where someone else is coming from. You don't have to have some famous celebrity, athlete, entrepreneur in order for it to be relevant or interesting or valuable, which is what I found because everyone I reach out to is, they're successful in their own right. It started with, I was just inviting people who I knew who were like entrepreneurs, then
sure.
developed into business professionals, business leaders, et cetera. And here we are now, 60 some episodes. But you don't, like you said, you don't need Elon to have an interesting conversation. It's just asking the right questions, getting the people on who want to be there, and you make magic that way. And it works.
You
It's really,
you
really
can
great.
learn something from everyone. And
Exactly.
there's so many interesting people in the world. And if you just, that's what Dale Carnegie taught me. It taught me to open up because I'm not a social person. I don't go to mixers. I hate all of those things. So another reason I did the podcast is because I don't know how to sell what we do. Like I'm not a salesperson. I don't have the BD gene. I can't do that thing. So I had to find a way to sell in my own way. This is the way I'm doing that. And it's also a bit selfish that we have a book club. I don't like reading, but I'm doing it because it's important for me as my personal growth and also for the company. But podcasting is also another form of reading because you're learning so much from smart people that I was ignorant to. And that to me, that's a form of reading a book.
That's so awesome. Man, it, just constantly improving, putting yourself in the challenging positions, uncomfortable positions that maybe you don't want to be in, and then growing, learning from it, and then taking on the next thing. It's huge.
Correct.
It's a huge
Hmm.
takeaway. And Brandon, with that, wanted to just ask you one last question before we wrap
Mm.
up here. Kind of cliche, but given the position you're in, obviously, illustrious career, great success, really diversified your skill set and your approach to just growth in general.
Mm.
What advice would you give to young professionals who are looking to lead, not just in the construction industry, but be a leader on in line with the way you've kind of set yourself up? People person, construction guy, you're doing all these things really well. What advice are you giving to people who are like, you know what, I'm listening to this guy, I kind of want to be like him?
Mm. God, that's
I
terrifying.
know that's loaded.
No, that's fine. Oh man, I would say find what you love to do or what makes you super unique and really lean into that. So for me, it's like super authenticity and like the weirdness. Like I will go to a convention where everyone's wearing suits and wear a sweatshirt just because like I don't want to fit that mold. So like whatever it is, and if you're a nonconformist or you're a super people person or you're great at those mixers or you're great at putting videos or content, it can be anything. Find how to take that, put it into words, put it into AI and say, tell me how to maximize this skill. And it'll give you a shitload of things you can do and then just start crushing those because then you become an expert into what you love and what you're very good at. And then it just kind of snowballs from there. And I do think that portion of branding can turn into exponential careers and whatever. Like you can have your career and you can have like this side career that is like really important to your superpower. And like that's where my worlds are kind of colliding right now, where I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, in the sense of like how can I combine them to like Captain Planet, but just like find that, lean into it, and don't be afraid to stand out of the crowd because I think that's the hardest part for people to get over is like, oh God, what are people gonna think?
Totally. Especially these days, unfortunately, as we well know.
Yeah, and whenever I get in that headspace, one of the greatest things my mentor coach told me, and it was some quote from somebody somewhere, and I don't know who it is. I apologize, but it was, if you wouldn't call them and take advice from them, why would you take criticism from them? And I was like,
Damn.
there it is.
Yeah. I needed that one. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, what the hell?
Makes sense. Yeah. That checks out. That definitely checks out.
So yeah, I mean, I would do that. It took me a while to get to that point. It is scary. But once you start seeing the fruits of that labor, you're not going to be for everyone. You don't have to be for everyone. Just find your pocket.
Yeah, you don't have to be for everyone. That's another huge takeaway too. It's like everyone doesn't need to love you. It's okay. Sometimes it's
Sure.
better. But
Yeah.
anyway, man, that was tremendous. Thank you so much for joining us on the Results Loading podcast. A ton of valuable takeaways. I'm really looking forward to pulling some snippets out of here and using them as promotions to boost this episode because I think there are a lot of highlights in this one. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing some of these insights and for joining us here on the Results Loading podcast. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.